the first one that sort of became very well known was Isabel Vaughn Spruce, and she was searched and arrested, and she was asked in Birmingham, wasn't it, by a policeman, "Are you praying?" She said, "I might be praying in my head," and then he said, "You're being arrested." Now, I talked about it on Twitter, and I got a lot of hate, even from my sort of vague side, because people were saying she's not arrested for praying, she's arrested for being in a zone where you're not allowed to be. And a few things were annoying about that. One is that everyone was acting like this law was like written in like slate, and it had actually just been made up 10 minutes ago, so it's like a nonsense law. And they would go, "Well, she's breaking a public service protection order," as if this is some real thing. And she said, "Well, she's not been arrested for praying," everyone was saying. And I go, "Well, then why has he asked her, 'Are you praying?' and then arrested her?" So clearly, so my argument was, if she was praying in her house, you still won't be arrested for that just about in 2023. But then again, if she was walking by the clinic just normally, she wouldn't be arrested for that. So it's not just being in the space. So it's clearly the combination of praying in that space that did it. Am I right?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up, because there's so many kind of misunderstandings and misinformation, if you like, online about what happened. There are people saying that she was arrested just for being in a space. Now, that's not illegal, and that's not banned by the PSPO, and there was no personal restriction on Isabel being near any abortion facility. So she was perfectly allowed to stand there for as long as she liked. What she was approached for by police is they said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I might be praying in my head." And it was because she was praying that she was subsequently arrested. And the PSPO mentions prayer as a form of protest outside the clinic, which is very controversial. I think if you ask any Christian or any person who prays if they think their prayer is a form of protest, they'd say, "Of course not, it's a thought between myself and God." But nevertheless,
that's a weird idea. You sort of sit by the end of the bed at night and you just have a quick protest. That's mental, isn't it?
Exactly. And what's very interesting about this case is that she wasn't even speaking or expressing anything. So if they hadn't asked her what she was doing, they would have no idea that she was praying inside her head. So the fact that they would interpret the PSVO as banning even silent, thoughtful prayer is a bit extreme.
A bit extreme is the most generous way. I can tell you've got a legal background. That's the most generous way of putting it. And I don't want to get in trouble again, because people are always trying to get me sued and things, because there's a lot of haters out there. But yeah, let's be very legal and careful. But I mean, yes, very extreme, let's say. And or a bit extreme, as you put it. But what do you say to the people who, even on my Twitter followers, were saying, well, she's causing trouble, so she doesn't have to be there? And I suppose it's true, she doesn't have to, so she's deliberately gone down to make a statement.
So if we get into the realm where police can wonder about certain bits of public streets and say, are you thinking this or are you thinking that? And if they're thinking this to get arrested, and if they're thinking that, they don't. That is an incredibly censorial measure. If you're pro-life or if you're pro-choice, the very concept of these buffer zones, the fact that the government can police what you're thinking, what you're saying based on the opinion, the viewpoint that you hold, is something that's very dangerous for society. A lot of people have asked Isabel why she stands there. Well, for about 20 years, she's been there actively helping, give out leaflets and information about services available to pregnant women. And she's, dedicated so much of her time voluntarily to supporting women through pregnancy and beyond. This time she was standing there to pray. And there's, especially for Catholics, standing somewhere and being in a particular place or spot to pray for something is very significant. It's the same way that you might leave, if someone dies in a spot, you might leave flowers there on the side of a road or side of a mountain or wherever it might be. There's something significant about marking the spot. And for Isabel and for other Catholics, praying in the place where she's praying for is something that's significant to her faith.
Mm-hmm. Perfectly reasonable. But it shows the toxicity of the debate in this country. I mean, the pro-life side is just so hated that even people who are sort of the kind of people who would follow me will say things like, well, she was asking for it, she's causing trouble, there's a public service protection order. I find that amazing. But I mean, you must have noticed this, that it's just so toxic just even being pro-life.
It is. There's such a misconception in the media about what we're doing out there. People very quickly jump to the conclusion that these terrible pro-lifers are going and bashing people over the heads with signs and saying, get away from me, Satan. Of course, that's absolutely ridiculous. Firstly, pro-lifers have no interest in harassing pregnant women. If their objective in being out there is to support both lives of mother and child, being harassing and being violent is not going to serve that purpose at all. So there's no interest in that. And when the government carried out a review into what was happening outside abortion facilities in 2018, they actually found that instances of harassment were very rare, and that there was already laws in place that could prosecute it when it occurred. So it's very clear that what the majority of pro-lifers are doing, the vast majority, is very helpful. It's a great service. You know, often pro-lifers are accused of being, oh, you're not pro-life, you're pro-birth, you just don't care about the woman, you don't care about her after she's given birth. Actually, pro-lifers have been going above and beyond to prove that it's not true. They're offering services like, you know, housing and baby supplies and childcare, you know, before and after pregnancy. So they're doing a great work, a great charitable work, and yet unfortunately not always recognized for doing so.